Time now for our Muni moment. Commuters into New York City face a potential rail workers strike in neighboring New Jersey at midnight tonight. The two sides were talking in Washington this morning, and according to the CEO of New Jersey Transit, the nation's third biggest transit system, there is still time left to reach a deal. The head of the union also called the talks fruitful. Now, these talks are taking place as the biggest U.S. transit system faces a combined $6 billion shortfall for years to come, according to a Bloomberg analysis. For more on the challenges that mass transit faces, let's bring in Leslie Richards. She served as Transportation Secretary for Pennsylvania. She is currently a professor at University of Pennsylvania. Thank you so much, Professor, for speaking with us. I guess I want to start with this idea that people keep warning of a death spiral in mass transit, meaning if there aren't enough people riding the transit system, they're not collecting enough fares, and then they have to cut service, and that would just discourage people from riding the transit system further. Is more government funding, more government aid the only solution here?
More funding is definitely needed on the federal level, on the state level, on the local level. We would love to see U.S. investment like we see in other countries in Europe, abroad, in the Netherlands. We have to figure this out. Large transit agencies can't keep trying to figure things out year to year. It'd be wonderful to have dedicated funding where they can do this planning. And then when we can make, the real investments so that our cities and our regions have the transit systems that they deserve, that allow for livable, healthy communities with vibrant businesses, good economic development. And that's only going to happen if there's dedicated funding that those agencies can count on.
Yeah, and there was a lot of funding, at least right as COVID hit, $70 billion lifeline from the federal government that has since run its course. So different transit agencies have to come up with their own solutions. Here in New York, the Mass Transit Authority is counting on revenue from congestion pricing and bonds that are secured by that revenue to make up for the deficits and future deficits as well. Is that solution replicable across the nation? I mean, there's got to be other solutions, creative solutions out there.
There's definitely other innovative solutions. Congestion pricing is one of them. And, we'll see how that if it continues and how that works in New York. But, we've had examples in Austin, Texas, in Seattle, Washington, where property taxes, where vehicle excise taxes, where sales taxes have been used to invest in transit. We know how tightly it is tied to our economy. I just had a conversation with a legislator who was confused as to why, more was needed. He happens to be from, a rural area that doesn't have a lot of transit, although it has some for seniors and those with disabilities. And he had let me know that someone had just come to Philadelphia region for some medical treatments. And I said, well, if you want the hospitals in the Philadelphia region to function, guess who those who clean your rooms, who take care of those patients, they rely on transit to get to work every day. So just trying to make that example of how everything's connected.
It certainly is. So very quickly, Professor, which transit systems in the U.S. are in the most dire state? Which is relatively healthy? Very quickly here.
Well, we saw, those transit agencies that rely on fare box revenue, right? Those when ridership went down during COVID and that revenue was left out, that's where it's tough. That's where, with San Francisco, which had 70% revenues coming in from the fare box. That's where, Chicago, that's where Philadelphia and SEPTA, Boston, others, trying to figure out how to make that up.